The Democratic Republic of Congo has reiterated on the need to recognize and better the lives of youths on the African continent during the just concluded EU and African Union Summit. Speaking to African News, the DRC Prime Minister Jean-Michel Sama Lukonde highlighted other several issues like vaccine production on the continent and further call on the strengthening of the EU-AU bilateral partnership in the future. Of course, the main issue was peace, security, the financing of projects, not only at the level of infrastructure, but especially youth entrepreneurship, because here it was a real question of young people, women, young girls, but more to finish with this support that we must have in relation to vaccine coverage, especially with the possibility of having vaccine production as it is today in certain African countries. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, by extending it to other diseases like malaria, tuberculosis. This is what we expected, and we think we are heading in the right direction, especially in bilateral, regional, and ultimately EU-Africa Union relations. 6 African countries have been chosen to establish their own mRNA vaccine production, the World Health Organization said Friday, with the continent largely shut out of access to COVID jabs.
Former president of Mozambique, Armando Guebuza, sat in court on Wednesday to defend his government's decision to contract huge secret loans that triggered an economic crisis in the country. The government, led by Guebuza, used $2 billion to buy a tuna fishing fleet and surveillance vessels. The former president defended his actions. The decision to look for resources was taken by me by delegating the operative command through our leaders. The government managed to hide the loans from Parliament, but the debt came to light in 2016, prompting donors to cut off financial support. We were working with structured organs. They were present at the proposal and it was discussed. And when it was approved, they could continue to working on it and its execution. Last week, former Interior Minister Alberto Mondlane denounced the loans as the result of foreign interference in Mozambican affairs.
Mali's army-led government has asked France to withdraw its troops from the Sahel state without delay, calling into question Paris's plan to pull out over several months. Government spokesperson Colonel Abdoulaye Maïga said on public television that the results of France's 9-year military engagement in the country were not satisfactory. The government advised the French authorities to withdraw the Barkhane and Takuba forces from the national territory without delay under the supervision of the Malian authorities. France currently has some 5,000 troops deployed across the Sahel as part of its anti-jihadist Barkhane force, the majority in Mali. The transitional authorities, in the exercise of their sovereign right, have taken deliberate action to diversify partnerships and have made enormous efforts to increase the strength of the Malian armed forces and significantly improve the security situation on the ground over the past 6 months, particularly with a view to creating the security conditions necessary for the holding of elections.
Notamment en vue de créer les conditions sécuritaires pour la tenue d'élections.
In response to the demand from Bamako, French President Emmanuel Macron said on Friday troops will leave Mali in an orderly fashion. This decision to withdraw troops from Mali, which is the result of a change in the political situation and the sovereign choices of the junta in charge in Mali, will therefore leave in an orderly fashion so that we can continue to ensure during this period the security of the MINUSMA and the security of all our armed forces deployed today in the country, which I will not compromise for a single second.
Sécurité avec laquelle je ne transigerai pas une seule seconde.
Relations between France and Mali deteriorated sharply after Mali's army seized power in the coup in August 2020.
A United Nations independent expert has accused Central African authorities and Russian paramilitaries of systematically obstructing the work of investigators and further denounced abuses by Russian allies against the civilian population. At a press conference in Bangui on Friday, he accused the Russian paramilitaries of orchestrating several abuses against the civilian population. The Russian allies are the perpetrators of several abuses against the civilian population, such as going into villages and threatening the people, firing weapons at animals such as cows, and taking possession of a certain number of cattle without paying the price to the breeders or farmers. This is not the first time such allegations against the Russian paramilitaries have been made. It is not acceptable that there are obstacles. Where these obstacles come from the Central African Armed Forces, internal security forces, armed groups or Russian allies, for us, this is unacceptable. The UN recently warned that over 3.1 million people in Central Africa require protection and humanitarian assistance at the highest level in 5 years. The UN Refugee Agency, the UNHCR, has said that it is worried about the safety and well-being of thousands of Eritrean refugees caught up in the conflict in the neighboring Ethiopia. According to survivors, 5 refugees were killed and several women were kidnapped after armed men launched an attack on February 3rd in Barale camp near the border with Ethiopia region of Tigray.
Told UNHCR staff that armed men entered the camp on the 3rd of February, stole their belongings and occupied their homes. According to their testimonies, at least 5 refugees were killed and several women were kidnapped.
The attack earlier this month is the latest blow to more than 100,000 Eritrean refugees living in Ethiopia, whose camps have been repeatedly caught up in grinding 15-month war.
Refugee camp severely impacted. UNHCR remains extremely worried about the safety and well-being of thousands of Eritrean refugees caught up in the conflict.
Established in 2009, the camp housed nearly 21,000 refugees as of December 2021, according to the United Nations.